Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
My brother slept with my fiancée right before I proposed. Now my daughter wanted a reunion, so I gave them a night they'll never forget. I'm Maxwell. I'm 48 years old, and I built something from nothing. Started out swinging hammers straight out of high school, working 12-hour days under the sun with concrete in my boots and dreams in my head. Decades later, I own 3 contracting companies spread across the state. I'm worth about $4.2 million, live in a beautiful house up in the hills, drive what I want, eat what I want, and most importantly, answer to no one. But it wasn't always like this. 28 years ago, I was just a broke 20-year-old kid who thought loyalty meant something. I still remember the scent that clung to me after work, the thick smell of concrete dust, motor oil, and sunburnt skin. That Friday, I left the construction site dog-tired, my hands raw and blistered from mixing cement and hauling rebar. I'd been grinding double shifts for weeks. Every sore muscle, every splinter in my palms, it was all for one thing. I opened my wallet on the bus ride home, and there it was, my final paycheck. That check brought my savings to exactly $3,200. I remember grinning like an idiot just staring at it. That money meant the world to me. It wasn't just cash, it was the ring, her ring. I'd found it months ago, a modest, single-stone diamond set in white gold, tucked inside a velvet box I kept hidden in my closet behind old steel-toe boots. I was going to propose the following weekend at her favorite restaurant downtown. I thought I had it all figured out. Back then, I was just a kid with calloused hands and blind faith. I worked long days in construction, lived in a rundown 2-bedroom apartment with my older brother Dean, and I was head over heels in love with Jocelyn, my college girlfriend. She was studying business administration, full of ambition and light, always talking about what came next while I was busy pouring foundations for someone else's dreams. Dean and I were close. We'd grown up that way, and always one step ahead. He was the smart one, sharp-tongued, dressed like a future CEO, and already working toward his MBA. Girls loved him. He had this charm that made people lean in when he spoke. A real smooth operator. Me? I was the worker. The fixer. The guy who got up before sunrise and came home with dirt under his fingernails. When I told Dean about the proposal, I still remember exactly what he did, clapped me on the back with that big brother grin, and said, "Bro, you're gonna make that girl the happiest woman alive." I believed him. Every damn word. Jocelyn and I had been together for 4 years. Blonde hair that flowed just past her shoulders, blue eyes so clear they could wipe every bad day from your mind, and a laugh that felt like coming home. I thought she was it. My forever. We talked about our future all the time. The kind of house we'd buy, the kids we'd raise, how I'd climb from laborer to business owner, while she climbed the corporate ladder. That Friday, my foreman let me leave early, a rare mercy after the brutal double shifts I'd been pulling. Said I'd earned it. Hell, I felt like I earned it. My arms were aching, my shirt stuck to my back with sweat, but I was walking on air. This was it. The final piece was in place. The ring was paid off. Proposal was planned. Life was finally about to begin. On the way home, I stopped by the flower shop on 8th. 2 dozen long-stemmed red roses, fresh and full. $60. That was grocery money for the week, but I didn't even hesitate. Jocelyn loved roses. She once told me red ones made her feel like a movie star. So, I bought the whole damn bouquet. I had a key to her apartment. Sarah, her roommate, was always out on Friday nights, some book club or wine night or whatever. I figured I'd surprise Jocelyn. Flowers in hand, maybe pick up some takeout, set the mood, kiss her on the cheek, and tell her, this time next week, I'll be your fiancé. I could already picture the way she'd smile, eyes wide, covering her mouth with her hands. I should have known. The apartment was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made your skin itch. Then I heard music. Faint, sultry, familiar. Some slow romantic crap she always played when she wanted to feel sexy. The bedroom door was cracked open just enough. I don't know what made me look, but I did. And what I saw didn't just break my heart. It destroyed my soul. Jocelyn was naked, completely naked, on her bed, and Dean was on top of her. They were so into it they didn't even see me. Not at first. Not until I stepped forward, and the bouquet slipped from my fingers. The roses hit the floor with a soft thud. Petals scattered. That was the sound that broke their trance. Jocelyn shrieked, grabbing a sheet to cover herself. "Maxwell, baby, wait, it's not what it looks like." Dean stood up, fully exposed, no shame. "Bro, let us explain," he said, like that made it better. "This isn't what you think." My voice came out like it belonged to someone else. Cold. Hollow. How long? They looked at each other. That glance, quick, guilty, heavy as a confession. 6 months, Dean muttered. He couldn't even look at me. 6 months. Half a goddamn year. While I was working myself into the ground, busting my back, saving for a ring, dreaming about a future. This piece of shit was screwing the woman I loved. 6 months of hearing me talk about her, about my plans, while he smiled and nodded, and probably went back to her bed the same night. I snapped. I completely lost it. You knew. I shouted at Jocelyn, my voice cracking. You knew I was buying you a ring. You knew everything. She started crying. Maxwell, I didn't mean for it to happen. Shut up. I warned. I grabbed the lamp off her nightstand and threw it across the room. It exploded against the wall in a spray of ceramic and sparks. I was shaking, chest heaving, rage and betrayal pouring out of me like a flood I couldn't stop. I would rather die, I said, my voice hoarse, than ever see either of your faces again. And I meant it. I turned and walked out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Got into my truck and drove, nowhere in mind, just putting miles between me and that scene. Eventually, I had to pull over. Couldn't see through the tears. My chest hurt so bad I thought I might pass out. The next few weeks? Hell, I moved out of the apartment I shared with Dean. Got a shitty one-bedroom across town. Changed my number. Cut everyone off. My parents try to play peacemaker. Brothers fight. My mom said gently, patting my hand. You'll work it out. My dad, he just shrugged and muttered, time heals everything. Right. But then, 3 months later, Dean and Jocelyn got engaged. And my family, acted like it was perfectly normal. That's when I realized I was truly alone. They got married 8 months later. Big ceremony. All the bells and whistles. Everyone in my family went. I wasn't invited, of course not. But that didn't stop my mom from giving me a play-by-play like I was supposed to be happy for them. Dean looked so handsome, she told me over the phone, like it was some kind of consolation prize. And Jocelyn. Oh, Maxwell, she was such a beautiful bride. They're really happy. Maybe it's time to move on. Move on. That was the moment. Right then and there. I made a promise to myself. I'd show them. I'd show all of them exactly what kind of mistake they made, what kind of man they threw away. I didn't mope. I didn't cry anymore. I worked. Threw myself into it like a man possessed. Took every job I could get my hands on. Framing, plumbing, drywall, electrical, roofing. You name it, I did it. If there was a skill to learn, I learned it. While Dean was off finishing his fancy MBA, shaking hands and sipping lattes in seminar rooms, I was laying tile in the dead of winter, patching roofs in triple-digit heat, grinding nonstop. I was becoming dangerous. I was becoming indispensable. Somewhere in the middle of that grind, I met Amanda. It was at a coffee shop just a block from a remodel I was doing. I was covered in dust, hands stained from grout, and probably looked like hell. But she smiled at me like I mattered. Amanda was a nurse, sweet, grounded, patient. She listened when I spoke, didn't care that I had rough hands or scars on my knuckles. She didn't care about flashy dinners or fancy cars. She wasn't like Jocelyn with her designer shoes and champagne taste. Amanda was the kind of woman who packed me lunches with handwritten notes. We got married 2 years later. Erica came along 9 months after that. My daughter, she changed everything. Erica was the best thing that ever happened to me. All the rage, the pain, the betrayal, it faded every time I held her in my arms. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and it was like the world hit reset. Amanda and I didn't last forever. We divorced when Erica was 12. Nothing messy. No screaming matches or court battles. We just grew apart. But we stayed civil. For Erica. Always for Erica. And while I was building a life for my daughter, I was also building something else, my empire. Started my first contracting company when I was 25. I didn't sleep much those years. Then came the second company. Then a third. By the time I hit 40, I wasn't just successful, I was rich. Really rich. Multi-millionaire rich. The kind of money that changes how people treat you, how they speak to you, how they look at you when you walk into a room. And Dean? His MBA got him a nice little middle management gig at some insurance company. Jocelyn. She worked part-time at some boutique, spending more than she earned on designer crap. They had 2 kids, lived in a cookie-cutter house in the suburbs, drove used cars. Nothing wrong with that life, not at all. But it sure as hell wasn't the success story they thought they were writing when they threw me away. I never spoke to any of them again. At family gatherings, I kept my distance. Someone brought them up. I changed the subject. And my family learned quick. Dean and Jocelyn were my red line. Cross it, and I was gone. Erica knew. She never asked why, never pushed. She grew up knowing she had an uncle and an aunt she'd never meet. And I never badmouthed them. I just said, we had our differences, and left it there. She was smart enough not to dig. And truthfully, she had everything she needed. Private school, a fully paid college fund, a brand new car on her 16th birthday, family vacations to Europe. She never wanted for anything. Then, 3 months ago, she dropped the bomb. We were having our usual Sunday brunch at the country club. She was sipping her mimosa, scrolling through some wedding venue photos on her phone. I was halfway through my coffee when she looked up and said it. "Dad, I want them at my wedding." I nearly choked. I wiped my mouth, sat back in my chair. "What are you talking about?" I asked, already knowing. "Uncle Dean, Aunt Jocelyn," she said gently. "I want them at my wedding next year." Erica was engaged to Ryan, a sharp kid, software engineer, made good money and treated her right. I was paying for the whole wedding, an $85,000 event at the best venue in the city. Everything was already set. The caterers, the band, the dress fittings. It was going to be perfect. "Absolutely not," I said, setting down my coffee cup. "They're not coming." Erica blinked at me across the table. "Dad, it's been 28 years. Don't you think it's time to get over whatever happened? Get over it." I repeated, stunned. "You talk like it was some disagreement over a football game." She folded her arms. "Then explain it to me." I stared at her, my own daughter, asking me to relive the worst betrayal of my life like it was a bedtime story. "I've been following Jocelyn on Instagram for years," she added casually. "She seems really nice. And their kids look sweet. Why can't we all just be a family?" That's when it hit me like a punch in the gut. My mother. Of course. She'd been showing Erica pictures. Little family stories, little moments, filling her head with bullshit about how wholesome and happy everything was. Behind my back. The same woman who once told me, "Time heals everything. If you invite them." I said firmly, "I won't be there." Erica stared at me like I'd slapped her. "Are you serious?" she said, voice rising. "You'd miss your only daughter's wedding over some old grudge." "It's not a grudge, Erica," I said quietly. "It's called having self-respect." She stood up, her chair scraping back hard against the tile. Threw her napkin down on the table. "Fine," she snapped. "Then I'll pay for my own wedding. I don't need your money or your approval." And just like that, she was gone, stormed out of the country club, heels clicking all the way across the marble floor, leaving me sitting there alone, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. 2 weeks went by. I threw myself into work, like always. Got back on job sites, breathed in dust and paint fumes, tried to forget. Until one day, I came home from a job in Bakersfield, dog-tired, and saw unfamiliar cars parked in my driveway. Something was off. I walked through the front door and nearly lost it. There they were, sitting in my living room like it belonged to them. Erica, Dean, Jocelyn. I just stood there, frozen. Dean had aged like milk. Hairline gone damn near to the back of his skull, a gut spilling over his belt, and a cheap suit that looked like it came off a clearance rack at some dime department store. He tried to stand up straight, but I saw his hands shaking. Jocelyn was another story. You could tell she'd had work done, tight skin, fake jugs, lips puffed to cartoon proportions. Dressed in designer clothes she definitely couldn't afford. She was trying so hard to be the hot young thing she used to be, but all I saw was a desperate housewife clinging to faded glamour. I dropped my bag and narrowed my eyes. "What the hell is this?" I asked. Erica stood, hands raised like she was defusing a bomb. "Dad, please. Just hear them out." Dean rose from the couch, fake calm all over his face. "Maxwell, I know we have a lot to talk about." "No," I said coldly. "We really don't. Get the hell out of my house." Jocelyn stood too, flipping that brittle blonde hair over her shoulder. That same fake sweetness in her voice that always made my skin crawl. "Oh, come on, Maxwell. We're family," she said. "Can't we just put the past behind us?" Her eyes weren't even on me. They were roaming, scanning the walls, the furniture, the paintings, everything in that room. I could practically see the dollar signs in her gaze. Then she turned to me, that fake smile plastered on. "You see, Maxwell," she cooed. "Dean and I have been going through a rough patch financially. The kids need braces. We've got some credit card debt. And, well, we heard about how well you've done for yourself." And there it was. The real reason they were here. Not forgiveness. Not family. Just money. "Are you kidding me?" I said, my voice low, steady. Dean tried to jump in. "Erica told us about the wedding," he said quickly. "Maybe we could help with the planning. And, you know, if you needed any financial assistance or advice." "Financial assistance," I repeated, cutting him off. "From you two?" I started laughing. "Do you have any idea what I'm worth?" I asked, looking straight at them. Jocelyn's eyes lit up like goddamn dollar signs. She didn't even try to hide it. "Well," she said, clasping her hands together like she was about to bless the meal, "we know you've done well. And family should help family, right? I mean, Erica is getting married, and weddings are so expensive. Get out." My voice was flat, calm, dangerous. Jocelyn blinked. Erica gasped. Dean didn't move. "Get out of my house. Right now." "Dad, please." Erica cried, voice cracking as tears welled in her eyes. "They're trying to apologize." "Apologize?" I turned to her, slow and deliberate. "They haven't said one word about what they did. Not one. They're not here because they're sorry. They're here because they think I'm their goddamn lottery ticket. Jocelyn's smile twitched. For half a second, her mask slipped. And in that second, I saw her for what she really was, greedy, calculating, entitled. Look, Maxwell, she said, trying to reset her voice to that soft, coaxing tone she used to use when she wanted something. What happened between us was a long time ago. We were young. We made mistakes. But Dean and I are married now. We have kids. And we could really use some help getting back on our feet. Help getting back on your feet. I scoffed. What the hell have you two even been doing for the last 28 years? Dean shifted awkwardly, staring at the floor. Embarrassed. At least he had the decency for that. But Jocelyn, she just kept going like she was reading from a script. Well, Dean's job doesn't pay as much as we thought it would. And raising kids is expensive. We made some bad investments. So you thought you'd come crawling to the brother you screwed over, I said, voice rising, and asked for a handout. It's not a handout, Jocelyn snapped. And just like that, the sweetness in her voice was gone. What was left was sharp and cold. Your family, she hissed. And honestly, you've done well enough that helping us wouldn't even dent your bank account. And that's when it all crystallized. Everything I'd refused to see back then, everything I'd tried to bury. Jocelyn hadn't changed. Not one bit. She was still the same gold-digging, entitled princess she'd always been. Still saw the people around her as walking ATMs. And Dean? He was just her enabler. Too weak or too blind to see it. Or worse, too selfish to care. I looked at Erica, who was sitting there with tears on her cheeks, looking torn and devastated. Erica, I said quietly, never once taking my eyes off the two parasites standing in front of me. If you want them at your wedding, you can pay for it yourself. And you can find yourself a new father figure, because I'm done. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked out of my own goddamn living room and shut myself inside my home office. Locked the door behind me. I sat there, not moving, while I listened to them arguing on the other side of the house. Voices muffled, tension sharp, until, finally, the front door slammed and the house went quiet. Erica didn't speak to me for 6 weeks after that. And I'll be honest, those 6 weeks were brutal. I missed my daughter like hell. Every day, I told myself I'd done the right thing. That I had to stand my ground. That some lines don't get crossed without consequences. But at night, I'd lie awake wondering if maybe I was being too stubborn. Maybe I should just swallow my pride. Let them come to the wedding. Move on. Be the bigger man. Then the phone rang. Maxwell, this is Tony Rodriguez. Tony, an old family friend. Used to work with my dad back in the day. A good man. Honest. The kind who never called unless he had something important to say. I know this isn't my business, he said, his voice low and careful. But I think you should know something about Dean and Jocelyn. My grip tightened around the phone. What about them? I was at Murphy's bar last week, he said, and I overheard them talking to our cousin Mike. They were planning something. Planning what? I asked Tony, my voice low and tight. They're broke. Maxwell, really broke, he said. Dean lost his job 6 months ago. I blinked. What? He never told me that. They're about to lose their house, Tony went on. And Jocelyn's been making some big purchases on credit cards, thinking Dean would get a promotion that never came. My blood started to boil. My fingers clenched around the phone. I said nothing, just let him talk, because I could feel the storm coming up behind my teeth. But here's the kicker, Tony said, his voice dropping. They're not trying to reconcile with you out of any genuine remorse. I didn't say a word. I just listened, waiting. Jocelyn actually said, and I quote, once Maxwell forgives us publicly at the wedding, we can start asking him for real money. He's worth millions, and we're family. He'll have to help us. The phone creaked in my grip. They figured if they could get Erica on their side first, Tony said, you'd have no choice but to give in. And once you did, they'd milk you for everything they could get. I didn't say goodbye. I just hung up. I sat in my office a long time after that, staring at nothing. I don't know how long it was. Might have been 20 minutes. Might have been 2 hours. All I know is I didn't move. Not until the thoughts stopped racing and started focusing. Then I made some calls. You see, when you have money, and I'm not talking about a few thousand in savings, I mean real money, you build a network. Lawyers, fixers, contacts in places where information flows fast and quiet. I made one call that mattered most, to a private investigator I'd used once before when a business partner started getting shady. $5,000. That's what it cost me, and it was worth every penny. The report I got back was beautiful. Dean hadn't just lost his job. He'd been fired for sexual harassment. 3 different complaints. All women. All at his last company. The insurance firm settled out of court to keep the heat off, but word had spread behind the scenes. He was blacklisted in the industry. Jocelyn. She'd racked up $47,000 in credit card debt. Designer clothes. Jewelry. Lavish crap for Instagram likes and dinner parties they couldn't afford. They were 4 months behind on their mortgage. Their cars were close to being repossessed, and they owed the IRS $23,000 in back taxes. But the cherry on top? Jocelyn had been cheating on Dean for 2 years with her personal trainer, a 26-year-old musclehead named Cyrus, who drove a motorcycle and lived in his mom's basement. The PI gave me everything. Photos, hotel receipts, text messages, even a shot of them kissing in front of a red roof in like something out of a bad soap opera. That's when I knew. It was time. Time for my revenge. I called Erica. "Hey, sweetheart," I said gently. "Dad?" she said, hopeful. "I've been thinking. I changed my mind. I'm ready to reconcile with Dean and Jocelyn." "Really? Dad, you mean it?" "I do," I said. "You were right. Maybe it's time to let go of the past." She was quiet for a second, and then I heard her sniffle. "I'm so happy you said that. You don't know what this means to me." "We'll make this work," I said. "Let's start planning the wedding again. I'll cover the costs, just like before." "Oh my God. Thank you, Dad. There's just one thing," I added, keeping my voice even. "Before we do any of that, I want to do this right. I want to have Dean and Jocelyn over for dinner before the wedding. Clear the air. You know, maybe we can all start fresh." Erica thought that was a wonderful idea. When she first brought it up, I almost laughed. A reunion? With them? But the way she said it, soft, almost pleading, I could tell this meant something to her. I called Dean personally, put on my best reconciliation voice, like I'd rehearsed it a dozen times. "Dean, this is Maxwell," I said calmly. There was a pause on the other end. I imagined his brow furrowed, the phone slightly pulled away from his face like he'd misread the caller ID. "Look," I continued, "I've been doing a lot of thinking. And Erica's right. It's time we put the past behind us." He was so shocked he could barely get words out. "Maxwell, wow. Really? Really?" "Yeah," I said. "I'd like to have you and Jocelyn over for dinner this Saturday. Just the 4 of us adults. No kids. We can talk things through. Maybe start over." "That sounds amazing, man," he said. "Jocelyn's going to be thrilled." I'll bet she was. That week, I had the house deep cleaned from top to bottom. Every tile, every surface, every window wiped until it shined. I hired a catering company to serve dinner: prime rib, lobster tail, herb-crusted potatoes, grilled asparagus. No expense spared. I even had my security system upgraded with new cameras and mics that captured every angle, every whisper in that house with crystal-clear audio. Just in case. Saturday night came, and they arrived right on time. Dean was wearing what looked like his only decent suit, creased in the wrong places, like it had been crumpled at the back of his closet for years. Jocelyn. She poured herself into a tight black dress that screamed desperation more than class. It probably cost more than their monthly mortgage, which, according to county records, was behind by at least 2 months. "Maxwell," Jocelyn gushed, wrapping her arms around me a little too tightly, her perfume invading my space. "Your house is absolutely gorgeous. You've done so well for yourself." Dean trailed behind, wide-eyed and clearly impressed. He looked around like a kid in a candy store. "Jesus, bro," he said, whistling. "This place must be worth a fortune." I shrugged. "It's home." I stepped aside and motioned them in. "Come on, let's eat. We have a lot to catch up on." Dinner started off friendly enough. Surface-level stuff. Erica's wedding plans, their kids, boring adult conversation that meant nothing. But I was watching. Jocelyn, especially. The longer she sat at that table, sipping wine and slicing into her meal, the more comfortable she got. And that's when her real nature started to seep through. "So, Maxwell," she said, cutting into her lobster like she'd eaten it every Tuesday her whole life. "Erica told us you own 3 construction companies now. That must be incredibly profitable." I set down my fork. "I do all right." "Oh, come on," she laughed, sweeping a hand toward the dining room. "This is way more than all right. You must be worth what, several million?" Dean gave a tight, awkward smile. Embarrassed, but not enough to stop her. "I don't really discuss my finances," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Of course," she replied, flashing that same phony grin I remembered all too well. "I'm just saying, it's amazing how successful you've become. And here Dean and I are, still struggling to make ends meet." "Here we go." "The economy's been tough," Dean mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "It really has," Jocelyn agreed. "Especially with Dean being out of work right now." "You're unemployed?" I asked, playing dumb. "Just temporarily." Dean jumped in, like it was a reflex. "I'm interviewing for some great positions." Jocelyn didn't miss a beat. "The thing is, Maxwell, we're in a bit of a tight spot financially. Nothing too serious, but you know, kids, mortgages, and everything." I nodded slowly. "I'm sure things will turn around." "Oh, I know they will," she said, her voice softening as her hand reached across the table to rest on my arm. especially now that we're all family again. I mean, family helps family, right? There it was. What exactly are you asking me, Jocelyn? She exchanged a look with Dean, then plastered on that big, fake smile I remembered all too well. Well, she said sweetly, we were thinking maybe you could help us out a little bit. Just until Dean finds a new job. We'd pay you back, of course. How much are we talking about? Maybe 50,000, she said, like she was asking for spare change. I nearly choked on my wine. 50,000. I know it sounds like a lot, Dean said quickly, trying to jump in before I exploded. But we're really desperate, Maxwell. We might lose the house. And it's not like you don't have it, Jocelyn added, her smile tightening, the mask slipping just a bit. I mean, look at this place. You probably spent 50,000 on your landscaping. I leaned back in my chair, staring at them both. So, let me get this straight. You two betrayed me in the worst possible way 28 years ago. Never apologized. And now you want me to give you $50,000. We are apologizing, Jocelyn said. We're here, aren't we? We're trying to make things right, Dean added. By asking for money. By trying to rebuild our relationship, he continued. The money is just temporary help. Between brothers. Jocelyn leaned forward then, her cleavage nearly spilling out of her dress. Maxwell, honey, we all made mistakes when we were young. But look at us now. We're all mature adults. Can't we put the past behind us and focus on the future? You're right, I said, standing up. Let's focus on the future. I walked over to the entertainment center and pulled out a manila envelope I'd placed there earlier. What's that? Dean asked, narrowing his eyes. The future, I said, sitting back down and setting the envelope on the table between us. See, when you two came to me asking for help, I thought I should know exactly who I'd be helping. I opened the envelope and slid out the private investigator's report. Jocelyn went pale the second she saw it. Dean just looked confused. Did you know? I said, keeping my tone casual, that Dean here was fired for sexual harassment. What? Jocelyn gasped. 3 different women, Dean. 3. That was a misunderstanding, Dean stammered. That wasn't. Look, it's not what you think. And Jocelyn. I continued, flipping a few pages. Did you know your wife has run up $47,000 in credit card debt? Or that she's been screwing her personal trainer for 2 years? Jocelyn's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Dean looked like he was going to vomit. Oh, and here's my favorite part, I said, sliding out the photograph and placing it gently on the table. This is Jocelyn and Cyrus at the Marriott downtown last Tuesday. Nice position, by the way. Very athletic. Dean snatched the photo and stared at it. His face went from pale to red to purple in seconds. You bitch, he whispered, voice shaking. Dean, I can explain. Jocelyn started. Explain what? He snapped, his voice rising. How you've been cheating on me while we're going broke. While I've been begging my brother for money. I think you two need to leave, I said calmly, picking up my wine again. But Jocelyn wasn't done. Her fake sweetness was completely gone now, replaced by pure entitled rage. You scumsucker, she screamed at me, her voice shrill and shaking with fury. You set us up. You knew about Cyrus, and you humiliated me. I stayed seated calm. I humiliated you, I said evenly. You humiliated yourself. We needed that money, she spat. We're going to lose everything. Not my problem. She stood up so fast the chair nearly toppled behind her. Her face was twisted with anger, almost unrecognizable. You think you're so much better than us, she seethed. You think your shit doesn't stink because you have money. I looked at her, unfazed. I think I'm better than you because I have integrity. Integrity, she laughed bitterly, as if the word tasted rotten coming from my mouth. You're just a bitter old man who can't let go of the past. I smiled a little. Actually, I've been planning this revenge for about 2 weeks. But it's been very satisfying. Dean still hadn't moved. He was just sitting there, staring at that photo like it had stabbed him through the chest. Broken. Defeated. But Jocelyn was just getting started. You know what? Fine, she snapped. We don't need your money. We don't need you. But don't think this is over. Oh, but it is, I said calmly, standing up now. Because you're never getting near me or my daughter again. That hit her like a slap. That's when she really lost it. Your daughter. Your precious little princess, Erica, she sneered. Do you want to know what she really thinks of you? She told me you're a cold, controlling a-hole who uses money to manipulate people. I didn't flinch. I smiled. Did she? That must have been before she found out what kind of people you really are. She faltered. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. A recording played, Erica's voice clear and steady. Dad, I owe you an apology. Tony Rodriguez called me and told me what he heard at Murphy's bar. I can't believe I fell for their act. They're not trying to reconcile. They just want money. I'm so sorry I put you through this. Jocelyn went pale. She actually swayed on her feet. That was from 3 days ago, I said, slipping the phone back in my pocket. Erica knows everything. The debt, The cheating, the harassment charges. All of it. You're lying, she hissed. I tapped the phone again. Another recording. This time, Erica speaking. No, Jocelyn, you're not invited to my wedding anymore. I know what you really wanted from my dad, and I'm disgusted. Don't ever contact me again. Dean finally looked up from the photo. His face was hollow. Erica knows about Cyrus, he said quietly. Erica knows about everything. I nodded. So does the rest of the family, by the way. I sent copies of the PI report to everyone. Your kids will probably hear about it. Jocelyn screamed. Actually screamed, like a banshee. You monster, she shrieked. You've ruined our lives. No, I said, stepping closer. You ruined your own lives. I just documented it. Now get out of my house before I call the police. Dean stood up slowly, still holding the photo in one hand like it was the only thing keeping him tethered. He turned and looked at Jocelyn with something close to hatred. 28 years, he muttered. 28 years I've been married to a lying, cheating bitch. Dean, please, she snapped. Shut up. Just shut up. He turned to me. Maxwell, I'm sorry. For everything. For what we did to you. For coming here tonight. For all of it. I stared at him for a long moment. It's too late for sorry, Dean. He nodded once. I know. He turned back to Jocelyn. Come on. Let's go. But Jocelyn wasn't done. She grabbed a wine glass and hurled it at me with everything she had. It missed my head by inches and exploded against the wall behind me, shards of glass raining to the floor like angry confetti. I hope you're happy, she screamed, voice shrill and cracking. I hope you die alone and miserable. I stood there, calm, arms folded across my chest. I'll die rich and respected, I said flatly. Can you say the same? She stared at me, stunned for a half second. Then she stormed out, heels clicking hard against the floor like gunshots. I didn't say a word. I just stood there still, watching. Security cameras caught everything. Every bit of her meltdown. Her rage, her threats, her glass-shattering tantrum. All in crystal clear high definition. The footage would end up being more useful than I could have imagined. They left that night. Her and Dean both. And I genuinely believed that would be the last time I ever laid eyes on either of them. I was done. I'd already buried that part of my life once. No way I was going back. But life? Life has a way of throwing curveballs even when you think the game is over. Dean filed for divorce the following week. Turns out, the private investigator's report made everything extremely easy for his attorney. Adultery, financial irresponsibility, emotional neglect. The whole ugly mess was laid bare, neatly cataloged and time-stamped. The judge didn't hesitate. Dean got custody of the kids. Jocelyn got nothing. She had to move back in with her parents, at 46 years old. The house they shared? Foreclosed. Dean had to declare bankruptcy. The IRS started garnishing every dollar he could scrounge from random temp work and odd jobs. And the cherry on top? Jocelyn's personal trainer, that smug scumsucker Cyrus, dumped her as soon as the scandal hit the neighborhood Facebook groups. Apparently, he wasn't so interested in a broke, middle-aged woman with no job, no reputation, and no future. Erica's wedding came a few months after all that. It was beautiful. The guest list was a little smaller, fewer people from Dean's side, but honestly, it made for a warmer, more genuine gathering. People who actually cared about us were there. I walked my daughter down the aisle with pride swelling in my chest. She looked radiant, strong, sure of herself. In her speech, Erica thanked me. She said, "Thank you, Dad, for always protecting our family from people who would take advantage of our love." I nearly lost it right there. 6 months went by after that. Nothing. No word from Dean or Jocelyn. I assumed they had slunk off somewhere to lick their wounds, maybe try to rebuild whatever mess they'd made of their lives. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning. Normal day. I was going through invoices and vendor emails when my secretary buzzed through. "Mr. Maxwell," she said, her voice a little uncertain, "there's a Dean Thompson here to see you. Says he's your brother." I paused. That name hadn't been spoken in my office in years. He had never visited, never seen what I'd built. "Send him in," I said. The door opened slowly, and Dean stepped in like a ghost. He looked ruined, clothes wrinkled, cheap, eyes sunken, cheeks hollow. He'd lost weight, the kind you don't lose on purpose. "Maxwell," he said, "thank you for seeing me." I didn't offer him a chair. He sat anyway, across from my desk, and dropped his head into his hands like he couldn't even hold it up anymore. "I'm desperate, man," he muttered. "Completely desperate." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "Figured as much. You wouldn't be here otherwise." He looked up quickly, shaking his head. "It's not for me," he said, voice cracking. "It's for my kids. Tucker and Mabel." He swallowed hard, the words coming faster now. "They're 16 and 14. They live with me in a one-bedroom apartment above a pizza shop. Tucker's supposed to start his senior year next month, but we can't even afford basic school supplies. Mabel needs a dress for homecoming." I can't even buy her a $5 sandwich for lunch. His eyes met mine, and for the first time in years, I saw something I hadn't seen in Dean in a long time: shame. Tears welled up in his eyes. He said, "I know what I did to you. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But those kids, they're innocent in all this. They didn't ask for their parents to be screw-ups." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "Where's Jocelyn in all this?" "Gone," he said quietly. "Moved to Florida with some guy she met online. Sends a Christmas card if the kids are lucky. She doesn't pay child support." He shook his head. "Doesn't call. Nothing. And you think I should help you because? Because you're a good man, Maxwell. Better than me. Better than I ever was." His voice cracked then, and I realized he was crying. I destroyed my own life, and I can live with that. But my kids are suffering because of my mistakes, and I can't fix it alone. I let the silence sit for a moment. "What exactly are you asking for?" "Just enough to get the kids through school," he said. "Maybe help with rent so we can get a 2-bedroom place. I'm not asking for handouts. I'll work. I'll do anything. Construction, cleaning, whatever. I'll pay you back every penny." "How much?" I asked. Maybe $2,000 a month. Just until I can get back on my feet." $2,000 a month for how long? "Until Tucker graduates and gets a job. Maybe 2 years. I did the math. $48,000 total. "And what makes you think," I said slowly, "that you won't screw me over again?" Dean met my eyes for the first time since he'd walked in. "Because I've already lost everything that mattered to me. My wife, my house, my career, my reputation. The only thing I have left is my kids. And if you help me keep them safe and fed, I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful." I let him sit there in silence for a full minute. Then I said, "I'll think about it." He looked like he didn't believe me at first. "I'll give you an answer in 1 week." He nodded and stood up. "Thank you. Just, thank you for considering it." After he left, I sat in my office for a long time. Part of me wanted to tell him to go screw himself, but another part of me kept thinking about those kids, living in a 1-bedroom apartment above a pizza shop because their parents were idiots. 3 days later, Jocelyn showed up. My secretary buzzed me again. "Mr. Maxwell, there's a Jocelyn Thompson here. She's very insistent." "Jesus Christ. Send her in." Jocelyn walked into my office, and I barely recognized her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a t-shirt from Walmart. Her hair was fried from too much bleach, and she'd gained at least 30 pounds. The expensive cosmetic work had started to sag, making her look older than her 46 years. "Hello, Maxwell," she said, trying to sound confident, but failing. "Jocelyn," I said, "what brings you to my office?" She sat down without being invited. "I heard Dean came to see you. I know what he asked for. Help with the kids." She leaned forward, and I could see her trying to turn on whatever charm she thought she still had. That same pout, that same tilt of the head she used back when we were 20 and I was too dumb to know better. "Maxwell," she said, softening her voice like it was some kind of magic trick, "I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but those kids are my children too." I folded my arms. "The kids you abandoned." Her face tightened. "I didn't abandon them. I just needed space to figure out my life." "In Florida? With your new boyfriend?" Her cheeks flushed. "That didn't work out." "Shocking." She huffed, but kept going, leaning in a little closer like she thought proximity would make me forget everything she'd done. "Look, Maxwell, Dean can't take care of those kids alone. He's working at a damn Home Depot now, making $12 an hour. They need their mother. They needed their mother when you were cheating on their father and running up credit card debt. That's in the past," she said, her voice climbing into that familiar shrill register. "I'm here now, and I want to be part of the solution." I raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you proposing?" She took a deep breath, eyes flicking to my watch, my shirt, maybe even the car keys I'd tossed on the table when I walked in. She was calculating. Always had been. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. "I think the kids should come live with me in Florida," she said. "I have a nice apartment, good schools nearby. Dean can visit whenever he wants." "And how would you support them?" "Well," she bit her lip, playing innocent like it was a role she hadn't quite aged out of yet. "I was hoping you might help with that. Just temporarily, of course." "Help how?" "Maybe $5,000 a month. Just until I get back on my feet. I'm looking for work, but the job market is tough." I stared at her deadpan. $5,000 a month? That's more than double what Dean asked for." She shrugged like it was nothing. "And what about Dean? What about him?" She waved her hand like he was a bad smell. "Dean's a loser, Maxwell. He always was. He can barely take care of himself, let alone 2 teenagers. Those kids need a mother who can provide for them properly. A mother who abandoned them," I said flatly. "I made mistakes," she snapped. "We all make mistakes, but I'm here now and I'm trying to make things right. By taking the kids away from their father and asking me for $5,000 a month. It's not taking them away. It's giving them opportunities. And $5,000 is nothing to you, Maxwell. You probably spend that much on wine in a month. And there it was. The real Jocelyn. Still entitled. Still greedy. Still thinking the world owed her something. I leaned forward. Let me ask you something, Jocelyn. Have you talked to Tucker and Mabel about this plan? She blinked. Well, no, but... Because I have. I had lunch with them last week. Her face went pale. You what? I wanted to meet my nephew and niece, see what kind of kids they were. You want to know what they told me about you? She didn't answer. Tucker said, Uncle Maxwell, I never want to see that woman again. She destroyed our family and then left us. Mabel's voice was flat, like she'd been rehearsing that line for years. She's not my mom anymore. A real mom doesn't abandon her children. Jocelyn opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Just a soft puff of breath, like a dying balloon. Her mouth opened and closed again, useless. Those kids hate you, Jocelyn. And honestly, I don't blame them. Her face crumpled instantly, like someone flipped a switch, and she broke into tears. Big, ugly sobs that made her shoulders shake and smeared what little makeup she had on. Maxwell, please, she cried. I have nothing. My boyfriend kicked me out. I'm living in a motel. I can't find work. I need help. I narrowed my eyes. You need help? What about when Dean needed help keeping his marriage together? What about when I needed help 28 years ago when my own brother and girlfriend betrayed me? I was young and stupid, she whimpered. You were 20 then. You're 46 now. What's your excuse for abandoning your children? She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. I made a mistake. Okay. I thought I could start over. Be happy. But it didn't work out. I stood up slowly and walked around my desk until I was standing right in front of her. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. So now you want to come back and play mommy when it's convenient? I asked. I want to make things right. You want to make things right? I repeated, staring down at her. Here's how you make things right. You disappear. You sign over full custody to Dean. You don't ask for a penny from anyone. And you let those kids heal from the damage you've done. I can't do that, she said, voice cracking. Then you get nothing from me. She looked up at me, eyes filled with desperation. Maxwell, please. I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Anything. Yes, she nodded furiously, like a drowning woman grasping at driftwood. Anything. I walked back to my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out a single sheet of paper I had my lawyer draw up just in case she ever came crawling back. Sign this. She looked at it and frowned. What is it? This document terminates your legal rights as the parent of Tucker and Mabel. Sign it, and I'll give you $10,000 to disappear forever. She blinked. $10,000? That's it. That's more than you deserve. But Dean's getting $2,000 a month. Dean is taking care of his children. I cut her off sharply. You abandoned yours. She sat there, lips pressed tight, silent for a long time. Then she looked back at me and asked, what if I don't sign it? Then you get nothing. And I'll make sure every employer in whatever city you land in knows exactly what kind of person you are. Her hands were shaking as she picked up the pen. She looked like she might vomit. This isn't fair, she whispered. Fair? I leaned forward. You want to talk about fair? Fair would be you rotting in hell for what you've done to your family. She signed the paper with trembling hands. I opened my checkbook, wrote her a check for $10,000, and slid it across the desk. This is the last money you'll ever see from me or anyone in this family. If you ever contact Dean or those kids again, I'll have you arrested for harassment. She took the check and stood up slowly, crumpling it slightly in her grip. Her mouth twitched, almost like she wanted to spit, but she held it together. You know what, Maxwell? You're right. I am a shitty mother and a shitty person. But you're not much better. I leaned back in my chair and didn't respond. I could have, maybe should have, but what was the point? You've let hate consume your whole life, she said. Maybe, I said flatly, but I sleep well at night. She snorted softly. Do you? Because I think you're just as miserable as the rest of us. She walked to the door, one heel clicking loudly on the hardwood before she paused and turned back. For what it's worth, she said, her voice softer, like it came from another lifetime. I really did love you once. Back when we were kids. No, you didn't, I said, meeting her eyes. You loved what you thought I could give you. Just like with Dean. Just like with Cyrus. Just like with every man you've ever been with. She stared at me for a second, maybe waiting for me to soften. I didn't. She left without another word. A week later, I called Dean and told him to come to my office. He walked in looking nervous, sweating, fidgety, probably expecting me to tell him no. I've made my decision about helping you, I said. He held his breath. Didn't even blink. I'm not going to give you $2,000 a month. His face fell. Shoulders sagged. Eyes hit the floor. I'm going to give you $3,000 a month. I continued. Plus I'm paying for both kids' college tuition when the time comes. Dean stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. Like the words didn't register. There are conditions, I added. You work for me. I'm putting you in charge of maintenance for all 3 of my companies. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. It's honest work. It pays well. It comes with health insurance for you and the kids. Maxwell, I don't know what to say. Say you'll take it seriously, I said. Say you'll be the father those kids deserve. He nodded quickly. I will. I swear to God I will. Oh, and Dean, I added, leaning forward slightly. Jocelyn signed over her parental rights. She's out of their lives for good. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, like he'd been holding it for years. Thank you, Jesus, he whispered. Maxwell, thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said. You're going to earn every penny of this. I'm a tough boss. I don't care, he said. I'll do whatever you need. 6 months later, Dean had proven himself. Punctual, hardworking, grateful. Tucker and Mabel were thriving. Good grades, new clothes, a decent apartment. Tucker even got a part-time job at one of my job sites and, turns out, had a natural talent for construction. At Erica's first wedding anniversary party, Dean came over during a quiet moment. We were out back by the fire pit. Most folks were inside drinking champagne and pretending they liked each other. Maxwell, he said. I looked at him. I need to tell you something. What's that? I never really apologized. Not properly. For what Jocelyn and I did to you 28 years ago. I didn't say anything. You're right. I never did, he said. I was a coward. And a piece of shit. I betrayed my own brother for a woman who turned out to be a snake. There's no excuse for it. And I'm sorry. I'm sorrier than I've ever been about anything in my life. Why now? I asked. Because working for you, seeing how you've built your life, seeing how you've helped my kids even after everything, I finally understand what kind of man you are. And I finally understand what kind of man I should have been. I nodded slowly. Apology accepted. Really? He said. Maxwell, Dean, I said, cutting him off. I spent 28 years hating you. It was exhausting. I'd rather spend whatever time I have left building something better. He stuck out his hand. Brothers. I looked at his hand for a long moment, then shook it. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.